Hi, my name is Josetta Appleseed. My long-lost cousin Johnny used to go around the eastern part of the United States planting apples everywhere he went. So in honor of our study on Johnny Appleseed, we are going to make apple dumplings. Now, to begin with our apple dumplings, we want to create a sauce, and our sauce is made from sugar, a little bit of butter, some cinnamon, some water, and some red food coloring. We also are going to create a dough for our apples. And for our dough, we are going to need flour, Crisco, baking powder, and salt. Once we create our sauce in a saucepan and our dough, and we roll it out, we're going to put some apples on our dough, and we're going to fill those apples with some cranberries or raisins, and some pecans or walnuts, and some real good sugar and cinnamon mixture. Hi, we're ready to begin cooking our sauce. I'm ready to add my water, which is 1.5 cups of water that I've measured out in advance. And I put that right into the saucepan. Now I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. And I know that you all know what 1.5 looks like because we've done this in our measurement centers in math. I'm going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I'm going to add my butter, which is 3 tablespoons full. This is why you want to make sure you've washed your hands. And I'm ready to add my food coloring. And if you use drops, you want about 6 to 10 drops of red food coloring. And we're ready to put this on the stove, and we're going to slowly cook it until the sugar dissolves up. And while we're heating that on the stove, we're going to go ahead and make our dough. The next part of our apple dumpling recipe calls for us to create the dough for the apple dumplings. And it calls for 2 cups of flour, which we'll put into our bowl. We want to add 1 teaspoon of salt, and you would usually want to do this over a measuring cup so you don't pour all that salt into the bowl. We'll want to do 2 teaspoons of baking powder, we have 2/3 cups of Crisco, and I use butter flavored Crisco. My grandmother Appleseed always taught me to do that. And after we add the Crisco, we're going to take 2 knives, butter knives, and we're going to cut in the Crisco into the flour, into the sugar, and into the powder, into the baking powder. This takes a little bit of time. This allows the shortening to blend well in with the flour and to help hold that flour together when we make that dough. But my long-lost cousin Johnny used to love to have a glass of milk with his apple dumplings. Well, one day his mother was making apple dumplings, and Johnny got impatient, so he added the milk into the dough. And lo and behold, that became our secret ingredient for our dough, to make it so that it really sticks well together and becomes very moist. And now I'm just going to take my washed hands and I'm going to put it into the dough and I'm going to mix it up. This might take a little bit of time. When we get all done mixing up this dough, we're going to be ready to peel our apples. I'm going to take a minute right now to go ahead and check on our sauce so we don't burn it. You'll notice that the sugar in the sauce is slowly dissolving, and then it's got a pretty red color to it. It's going to look great when we put it on top of our apple dumplings and bake it. I'm going to go ahead and let this cook a while. We're going to go over to our apples. Because now I'm going to be dealing with my apples. Now this is an adult's job. So what you do is you take your knife. If you have an apple peeler, core, slicer, or some of those new gadgets that didn't have back in Johnny's time, then you can use those and it makes it real quick. But if you don't, you're going to want to take your knife and make 4 cuts on it, kind of like a square around the apple stem. This is getting the core or the center of the apple out for us. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. And you can use a Granny Smith apple, you can use Macintosh, Gala's, whatever your favorite apple is, and I've just picked a couple of different kinds for our apple. And when you're done, you can push the core out. If it doesn't come out the top, have it come out the bottom, and there you see we have the apple is cored. When we're done and we've taken the core out and we've peeled the skin off of it, we're going to go ahead while our syrup is still cooking and we're going to create a little bit of a filling for our apples. This is a cup of sugar and about a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I've got everything ready. I've got my pecans chopped. I've got my craisins or raisins if I prefer raisins. I've got my sugar and cinnamon, and my apples are ready, and I'm ready to take our dough that we created earlier, and I'm ready to make some little balls on our dough, and we'll talk about what happens next. We're ready to start rolling the dough out and putting our apples on and filling them up and getting them ready for the oven. Now I've set my oven for 375 degrees and we will bake these for 45 minutes. Again, this is an adult's job and we will bake these for 45 minutes. Again, this is an adult's job. I take some flour and I put it on my rolling pin board, and I take my rolling pin and I coat it with some flour, and I have separated our dough into 5 dough balls, and that's because we have 5 and sometimes 6 apples, but our apples are pretty good size on a few of them, so we're going to use just 5. And I take this dough ball and I flatten it a little bit and I put it down onto our board. I turn it over so that it gets coated with some flour, and then I can roll it out into a little bit of a circle. And I want it to be big enough that I can put those apples on it. And it doesn't matter really if you get a little bit of the dough to separate, because we'll pull it all back together when we put that apple on. We put the apple right there in the middle of our dough. We add a little bit of sugar and cinnamon mixture in the bottom of it. I like to add the pecans, but you know, Cousin Johnny had a peanut allergy or a nut allergy, so he couldn't have pecans or walnuts. So his apple dumplings did not have these in. And of course there were times that Johnny didn't like craisins or raisins, so he didn't add those either. So it's all up to you what you want to add. I think maybe some of those little red cinnamon dots might be good in them too. And then we top it with a little bit of sugar. And we take the dough and we just wrap it all up around our apple. And we just kind of squeeze it all together. And we put it in the pan. And we will add the sauce when we're done with our apples and dough. And we'll show you what it looks like when we're all ready to put it in the oven. We are now ready to add our sauce, and notice it's very, very hot, so this is an adult job again. And so now it's Mom's turn to take over and add some broth or sauce, some candy apple red sauce to our apples. Our apples are all in the pan. We're going to use a pot holder, make sure our pan is very, very close, and I may end up picking up this pan, but I want to get a little bit out of it first. I want to make sure that I pour some of that sauce over top the apples to kind of coat them before I pour some sauce over them. We will put this in our 375 degree oven for 45 minutes. And I'm going to just go ahead and pick this up, and of course there would be no children in the area. You would be sitting way back. and making sure that you are safe. I've got a nice thick pot holder in my hand. That's all the sauce we need. We're now ready to put it in a hot oven. See you in about 45 minutes. Hi, this is Josetta Appleseed, and I've taken my apple dumplings out of the oven. I'm ready to share them with Johnny. As you can see, they've browned up nicely, and the candy red apple glaze has thickened up, and they are now ready to put into our bowls. You can put some whipped cream on it or some ice cream on it and enjoy a good candy apple red apple dumpling. Bon appetit.
When it's apple blossom time in Normandy, I want to be in Normandy by that dear old wishing well with you, Marie. When it's apple blossom time in Normandy, I'm coming back to woo, and the spring will bring